A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Aarushi Jain, Associate Director of the Bharti Institute of Public Policy at the Indian School of Business, and I will be your MC for the day. Dear esteemed delegates and guests, welcome to the Open Data Conclave being organized by the Bharti Institute of Public Policy, Indian School of Business. Thank you for joining us in this day-long deliberation on open data. Open data has of late seen a growing interest in India. Various academic institutions and think tanks have also joined in hosting open data, along with the ease of search and accompanied visualizations. One such initiative is named as India Data Portal by the Indian School of Business. The first open data conclave is bringing together the various stakeholders like government, academia, think tanks, industry, media, and philanthropic organizations working on various aspects of open data in India. We wanted to organize the Open Data Conclave as an in-person conference, but due to the pandemic situation, the first edition of the Open Data Conclave is being held virtually. We have tried our best to provide our audience with a one of its kind virtual experience during this day long event. You will be witnessing the keynotes, the panel discussions, and industry talks during the event. There are going to be entertainment quizzes based on the data from the India Data Portal that you can play anytime during the day. With this very basic information, I would like to once again welcome everyone to the Open Data Conclave. We are thankful to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for generously supporting the India Data Portal initiative and the Open Data Conclave. It is my pleasure to invite our very own Professor Ashwini Chhatre, Executive Director of the Bharti Institute of Public Policy, Indian School of Business, for his opening address. Professor Chhatre is a prominent expert on data, environmental governance, and food and agriculture. He is the principal investigator of the India Data Portal project. Professor Chhatre, please.
Good morning and welcome to everyone. This is literally a dream come true. A gathering of data enthusiasts who are committed to making data open. Open data is now the dominant movement within data enthusiasts, just as open source was in software enthusiasts 20 years ago. And it has made tremendous progress. I want to highlight three aspects so that our deliberations today are understood in the right framing and, of course, in the current context where we are all joining virtually in events like these. The first is the role of the government. Everywhere, open data movements have always been propelled by the willingness of governments to open their data stores to the public for scrutiny. And this has been driven by the drive of citizens and citizen groups to gain more information and to enforce transparency with the objective of greater accountability and, of course, better representation. So open data historically has always been an excellent marker of the state of democracy in a particular society. And this need not be at the country level. For example, in the United States, many states started much earlier than the country itself. And even in India, some states, most prominently Andhra Pradesh, even 20, 25 years ago, started taking steps towards making data publicly available long before other states moved in that direction. So there are leaders, and sometimes the progress is slow, but government is always a prime mover and a very important player in the open data movement. That has been true in India, and that trend has been accelerating. And the kinds of data that Government of India and different agencies at the state and central level has enabled so that citizens have access to a wide variety of data, that movement has accelerated tremendously in the last 15 years or so after the Right to Information Act. The second important part here is related to the quality of data, or rather the usability of data. And that has been slow in terms of improvements. There is a lot of data, and there is so much data that you can drown in it and choke on it. But not a lot of it is actually usable. It takes a tremendous amount of effort by several people who have been trained for several years to make data actually usable. And that is the next frontier, where interoperability and machine readability of data becomes extremely important. And these are also tools that have improved tremendously. And I have seen, again, major initiatives in the right direction that the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation have taken. And I saw that Praveen has just joined. It was under his leadership at MOSPI that many of these steps were undertaken and continue to be, the movement forward has continued, so that increasingly data that is being made available is in machine readable format, that is interoperable across systems and is actually usable. And it's not just PDFs or macro enabled Excel files that are very hard to process. It's slow, but it's gaining momentum, and it has now been established both within government and civil society that the usability of data is equally important. It's not just the availability of data, and it's not enough. The third point that I want to end with is the future of data. And the wide variety of data that the government collects and makes available has diversified tremendously. And of greatest interest and importance is what I call transaction data. The traditional data that is reliant on surveys or regular reports filed by different actors, it continues to be made available. But transaction data such as PDS transactions or Marega transactions or Aadhaar transactions, this data is being made available on public websites in near real time or almost real time at the level of the user with details about location. And because these are public services, the data itself should be made available to the larger public, keeping in mind concerns around privacy and consent. And the future of data belongs to how well we can capture the transactions that citizens make. And ETAL, for example, as a portal, is a fantastic repository. And the DBT mission, the Direct Benefit Transfer mission in the Cabinet Secretariat, has also been working on using transaction data and making insights available based on that data. So this is where the future is, and we are already moving in that direction. In light of these, I want to highlight 4 attributes of data that we need to keep in mind as we move forward. And these are also metrics, indicators, or even targets that we want to improve or achieve. One is about fidelity. High fidelity data is extremely important. So the errors need to be minimized. And the human errors are easiest to minimize. And the move towards digitization and transaction data takes care of a lot of those errors. The second is frequency. A lot of our most useful data is available at fairly low frequencies. Census is only once in 10 years. Agricultural census is 1 in 5 years. And it is, of course, available several years after it was conducted. So we need to deal with frequency, both in terms of collection as well as making it available to the public much better than it used to be. The third is resolution. While a lot of data is available at the household level, it is only tagged to the district, so that we cannot make higher resolution insights or analysis based on this data. We need to find ways to increase the spatial resolution of the data. And finally, what I already said is real time. So the closer to the data collection time that we can make data available, the easier and better it will be for users to derive insights that are actually useful. So to make data usable and to increase the frequency, the resolution, the time lag before release, and the fidelity of the data. We have made tremendous progress on all of these dimensions, and the open data movement is now irreversible. So that is a moment for celebration, and I want to ensure that we do not forget, in the clamor for what is wrong, we do not forget to discuss and celebrate where we are compared to even 5 years ago. And we do have access to a lot of data that has been recently made uh, publicly available and open, and we want to continue and make sure that the progress is in the right direction, and the only movement is onwards and upwards. With that, I once again welcome you to a wonderful day of panels and sessions and speakers. And I hope that at the end of the day, we would take back lessons to strengthen the open data movement in India and take it to further higher ambition. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Chhatre. It's definitely your vision on the importance and applicability of open data and your expertise because of which we have been able to develop the India Data Portal at ISP. Thank you once again. As Professor Chhatre said, today there is an increase in demand for machine readable open data, both for social good as well as business benefit. In collaborative efforts with the US government, India launched the first open data government platform, data.gov.in, in 2012. And the ministries of the government of India are encouraged to upload all the data on this platform. It's my privilege to invite Mr. Durga Prasad Misra, Senior Technical Director at National Informatics Centre under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. He's heading the Open Data Technology, Web Technology, and Cloud Technology Division at NIC. In short, heading the data.gov.in initiative in the Government of India. Mr. Mishra, over to you for your keynote address, please.
Thank you, Aarushi. And thank you, Abhi and Ashwini, to invite to present our perspective regarding data.gov.in that we have been um, driving since last few years, maybe 8 years or so. So what Dr. Ashwini has said, this is all real, and he has he has done good research on these areas. So yes, there is a need of correct data. There is a need the frequency should be improved. There is a need that resolution of data is not there, and real-time data, it's coming. Many of the real-time data are coming, and there is a plan that how to encourage government departments to increase the real-time. Once you get the real-time data, all these above all 3 points automatically gets addressed. So before spending much time on speaking of these things, so I want to present what data.gov.in has made as of now, and how it is planned to be taken forward. So I'm just sharing my screen. So please confirm if it is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah, thank you. So I hope uh, you must have seen the data.gov.in and may have explored, many of you may have explored the features, functionalities, because everything is open on this data.gov.in. And you know, National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy was notified during 2012. As Aarushi mentioned, this was before 2012 that we collaborated with the US government, because they were running data.gov USA on a proprietary platform couple of years before they started, maybe around late 2010. And during mid 2011, we both of us collaborated because they wanted to migrate that to a open source platform. And at our NIC, somehow they came to know that at NIC, a lot of open source activities are happening. So they collaborated with us, and both of us developed a open source model of data.gov.in, which they took the code, and we also used the same code because it was cross country. So somehow we managed the time and developed jointly. The code was developed. Then we taken a growth. By the same time, once we when we released this beta version of DataGov, that time only this coincidentally this gadget notification was there. So we had all the more pressure to build the data.gov.in site for India. So it was data.gov.in initially launched in September 2012. So when we launched and we progressed and we started engaging with different communities, and people have started using the data for commercial and non-commercial use. So we got a lot of requests from different community and users and even startups that we should have some license and we should authorize them to use the data, and there should not be any legal implication in case they use any data. Of course, there is non-personal data has to be there. Even if non-personal data, many of the data departments and organizations, they focus that is my data, how can you use it for commercially, or maybe you derive something else. So we had a committee, at a high level committee, led by the then law secretary, and many of the community members, they were also there in the committee. And finally, this GODL was launched in 2017. So you can use freely whatever you want to do, but only thing is that you have to give the credit that from where you data got. Of course, it is from data.gov.in, but even on data.gov.in, who has contributed? Those things you should need to give. This is the only restriction there, that you should say that I am using this data. And over the years, this we have developed an ecosystem around open data. And you see this particular thing is the architecture, and on the left hand side you will find the features and functionality that you can have data driven from different ministries, departments, states, and all those things. And on the other side, the people are consuming the data in different forms, APIs, then web services, apps, and all those things. They can download, they can do whatever they want to do, they can transform and all those things. And there is a community system where we engage with the community. There is an event section where we create events and do discussions and around that. And there is a specific visualization system also they developed, where people can use the data published on data.gov.in, or else they can bring their data onto the site and they can create the visualizations and graphics and all of this. So that I'll detail out going forward. And some of the SaaS instances are also created, all those things. This is the ecosystem that we developed as an day. So if you go through data, currently there are around 4,17,000 plus data sources, under 8,600 plus catalogs. And you can, these are all contribute and share through APIs. So the people share, the government share the data, and those are through APIs. And we also share the APIs, because the entire data set that we are getting, instead of keeping those as a flat file, we also keep that in a NoSQL database, database. So from there, we expose APIs as and when required by the users, they request, or they, in the system itself, there is a option to request for API. So immediately we release those APIs. And there are the ecosystem also cover the chief data officers, where each department and organization who contribute the data, they declare at a JS level officer or director level officer as chief data officer, through which the data, because in NDSAP there is a binding that you have to confirm that the data you are sharing is non-personal data and doesn't impact the sovereignty of the country. So they have to give this declaration while releasing the data. So these are all actually mandatory clauses as per the NDSAP. So if you see in data.gov, there is no data which is scrapped or taken by somebody or published by the DataGov team itself. These are all, we are only the technology provider. Data is being contributed by data creators, and data is consumed by the consumers. So we keep capacity building and continuous engagement with the people in the whoever is the stakeholder, and we get to take these catalogs and place in your website, any of the websites. These are all free and licensed to, you're free to use license. So visualization and graphs, infographics also we create and publish. There is a community section where any of the community person, they can create their stories and they can publish. So these are all so there is an indicator dashboard as per the sustainable development goal. So we keep creating these kind of dashboards, and I've already told GODA. So this is the front side of the front page of the platform. I think many of you must have seen. These are the machine, all the data sets. What Professor Ashwini has said, many of which is true, many of the data sites, open data sites across the globe, they publish PDF file also as open data. Of course, this is one-star open, but these are all not machine readable. But if you find any data set in data.gov.in machine readable, it's not machine readable, then you can give a feedback, because we don't allow, there is no system to upload any PDF file or any thing which is not machine readable. Yes, of course, the data parameters, the attributes and all those things, it depends what ministry wants to publish. So we source data from 173 departments, which 173 is from different states and as well as our central ministry. And there are 108 APIs and web services from 29 departments. Those are on real-time basis or as the frequency decided by the department. So it's near real-time. If you see the air quality index, it is every half an hour, 1 hour or so it is, or half an hour the data is being refreshed. So this is how the way a department want to push the data, it is ready to consume. And there is a standard metadata. It's on Dublin core standards. This metadata has been created. The entire metadata is divided into two parts. One is a few attributes are towards catalog, and few are to the resources of that catalog. And time, title, then release date, a contributor, keyword, group, and sector, chief data officer details. All those things are you need to key in while entering the data. There is a provision to bulk upload. So whenever the users they onboard initially, if they have long list of data, they can create the data in their Excel file and they can upload it on a bulk. So in the data sets, if you see the granularity of data is mentioned, everything is mentioned there. You can see all those things. And even there is a provision to convert the data in different machine readable formats. Suppose it's Excel format, you can dynamically convert it to JSON or ODS or XML or some whatever you want. So the tool is built into the system. And this is a very good search we have provided, because it was not that good till a few years, but now it is very good search. Even the strike through capability is also there in case your search keywords doesn't find in the data catalog and all data sets, then it gives you that. So this the search is very good, and we are open to improve in case somebody points out. And we keep on sharing social media. There are a lot of social media sharing components are also built in. So data sets also you can share, and you can share the pages, you can share the other features and functionalities in the site. And a link to us. So we provide, it's a useful tool. You can create your own banner size and all those, choose your size depending upon your site and all. You just give a small code that you need to place into your website, so that you can the data sets or the filtered sets or the entire site or whatever you want, you can place that on your site, so that people can directly see. So the users who contribute the data, they need not to keep the data in two places. They contribute here and they can list the data set in their site. And whatever data is published on DataGov, how many times it has been accessed, how many times these are downloaded, uh, so who has developed, who has contributed, all these things are there in the analytics section of the DataGov. So whatever, these are all actually taken from the logs and all these are put. These are all real-time data. So whatever data is there, any data, one data set contributed, you can see that change here and you will find the details. So anybody can see this, and the list of chief data officers, the nomination of the chief data officer in case some data officer has been transferred. So we mark it, that there is a position to mark it that is the nomination is yet to receive. Suppose somebody is retired or somebody has relinquished the job and gone to some other department, transferred or all those things. So you can find how many currently CDOs are active and how many are nomination is yet to receive. So data sets can be filtered by the various sectors. Around 23 sectors has been identified. These sectors, on these sectors, so your data sets, your APIs, your web services, visualizations, everything, all components and all objects within data.gov for these sectors you can find. So if you click a particular sector, you will get all relevant components of the sector. And yes, of course, you can filter by all this. So there is a indicator dashboard. I had earlier said these are the indicator dashboards. So you keep on, you can keep on browsing and exploring, and the dynamically the data you can any the domain expert, they can change the parameters and the attributes, and they can see the difference. This the tool is given on the fly. You can do all these things. So some SDG goal data is there. Few graphics I'm just showing, but these are all, see if this data is given, is you can see the data, and visualization is this visualization where it is mentioned. You can see the visualizations created on data.gov.in data by our team and other users from the visualize.data.gov.in site. And if you see the dashboard, these are the data dashboard of the few of the data dashboards, which you can dynamically change and see the impact of the graphics. And there are few COVID related activities that also everybody is doing, so we also did something. So engagement through, what are the engagements? So we keep doing sessions with different government officials, then uh, workshops, training, and all those things. We keep doing these things on a regular basis. And you must be aware that on Digital India Awards, there is a Open Data Champion award. Is there. One category is there, Open Data Champion. So it's the from 2014 it was there. So MSME, then Ministry of Agriculture, Health, RGI for census data, and MOSPI, NITI Aayog, National Crime Record Bureau. These are the ministries or organizations that they got award during these years. So it is to encourage those entities who contribute data on a regular basis to data. And last year it was decided, and I think in 2020 it is going to be the only criteria. If the ministry and departments, they contribute to data through APIs, only those contributions will be considered for the award. For 2020, 2018 it was introduced, it was announced, and from 2020 onwards, only data sets contributed through APIs and web services and dynamic data coming to DataGov, that is the transactional data that Dr. Ashwini was saying. So those kind of data only will be considered for giving awards to these ministries who contribute. So let us see how it comes this year. People have started, I was showing that numbers, let us see how it is going. And these are some outcomes. So we keep doing hackathons, and even OpenGov data hack in the series we already finished 2018 and 2019, and it's a yearly event that we conduct. So earlier it was not, there is not, we do some hackathons or challenges on every year, but we have branded this OpenGov Data Hub from 2018, and we are continuing, and we are, because only due to this pandemic 2020, we could not complete that. So these are the stakeholder, we keep engagement with the different academia and research organization, all those things. So there are some infographics, those during those events people have created. And you know, this particular application is also available through software as a SaaS model. When you see this smartcity.data.gov.in, the internal core is the same data.gov.in. The interface and visual impact and their criteria and filter, these are all only the theme. The front layer theme is different. Otherwise, the underlying data, underlying metadata standardization, everything is same. It's not same, the same. This is the SaaS instance. It's a separate instance of data.gov.in on which smart cities portal is running. And there are a few states also there, Tamil Nadu, Odisha, this kind of, the 5, 6, 7 states are there who built their DataGov site on this framework. But you know, the drive in states, there is still needs to be exploited. So we have a separate visualization engine also. So I was saying that in this visualization engine, you can see, browse the data, that those are all already there in the site, and you create your own visualization. Then you can publish, you can write your story and publish that on the community.data.gov.in. So the entire process flow is there, and this once you publish, then it will come on the site. And this for your own data. Suppose you have your own data, you have some APIs, or if you copy paste your files also, you can create, and you can create visualizations out of this. So this facility is also there. So there are around 15 type of data graphics and charts you can create using visualize.data.gov. And these are the stories that I was saying, that this you can go through these galleries and see the stories. So this is how the underlying is data.gov.in, then state instance, then smart cities. It comes through CDO, then it comes to PMO for publishing. Once it is published, then in different formats, people can publish whatever formats are there. Those are things I think you can go through the guidelines that we published during initial days, maybe around 2013 or so, but it keeps improving and the new versions keeps coming. So
thank you so much, Mr. Mishra.
yeah, it's finished. It's finished.
Yes, thank you.
The last slide.
Yes.
So in the data.gov.in, you find this kind of data, and the data can be these data APIs can be connected with any of the proprietary or open source tools to create your data insights. Okay. So thank you. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to put our perspective on the Open Data Conclave. And yes, Open Data Conclave, I had earlier also visited with Mrs. Alka Misra and Sunil Babar to ISB Hyderabad for presenting. I think 2-3 years, I think we had gone there to present. This time it's pandemic, so I think it is virtual. So good. Thank you.
So data is the core of monitoring development, policy planning, along with evaluation of various schemes run by the government. Government of India's Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation oversees the statistical system of the country. Set up in 1999 with the merger of Department of Statistics and Department of Program Implementation, the ministry has a robust mechanism of data collection and dissemination through reports and sharing of unit-level data for researchers. We have with us the person who has led these efforts at MOSPI for almost 2 years, Mr. Praveen Srivastava, recently retired Chief Statistician of India and former Secretary MOSPI, requesting Mr. Srivastava to deliver his keynote address.
Thank you, Aarushi. Thank you, Professor Chhatre and Avik Sarkarji, for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank you all for inviting me and listening to me. Can I share my screen? I have a slideshow, which I promise you, I'll try to be very brief. So we just heard from Mr. Mishra regarding the efforts in the technology part. I would like to discuss a different orientation on the data part. We always talk about data as the new oil, but the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation is responsible for collecting the raw, the crude data from the economy and trying to churn it into a way that it could be used by people and by different researchers, by academicians, by the government for policy making. And in this drive, the Sustainable Development Goals plays a major role in terms of making data available to the larger audience. So how the National Statistical Office needs to emerge and take the avant-garde, be the avant-garde for the data is what I would like to share with you. So a lot of you have heard about the Sustainable Development Goals. They are basically 17 goals. We have to achieve them by 2030. There are 230 odd targets. And this is unique in the sense that it balances the economic, social, and environmental aspects of an economy so that there is overall growth in a holistic way. And this has to be done globally, not in terms of one nation, but for all nations. So when the United Nations agreed to the Sustainable Development Goals in the General Assembly, all the countries agreed that they would achieve these goals by the year 2030. Now, when this was launched, I don't want to repeat and read this out, but the most important thing about the SDG vision is that you need to develop policies and plans so that no one is left behind. A very tall order, because for leaving no one behind, you must have adequate and enough data to be able to achieve that. These are the 17 goals. They cover aspects like no poverty, partnerships, life on land, quality education, gender equality, so on and so forth, including climate change. Now, the promotion of sustainable, inclusive, and equitable economic growth is integral to the availability of data to find out where you are, where you want to go, and what is the growth path. So, as you all know, the MDGs were to be achieved by 2015, and this SDGs came in 2015. But if you look at the bottom part of the slide, this is a new area where people have harnessed and are trying to harness and unleash the potential of data, that is big data, citizen generated data, geospatial, earth observation, open data, many more. So there are a lot of new indicators that have come in that were not there in the past. And this puts a huge amount of pressure on the governmental system to be able to deliver on these goals. And a lot of this is covered in some aspect in government policy when we talk about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, the government's main motto, and also now Sabka Vishwas. So Vishwas will come with data and evidence with data. So one has to realize that although the Sustainable Development Goals are not legally binding, but each of the member countries who are partners to the decision taken in the United Nations General Assembly, they need to own the data that has been generated through the system. The other thing that they have done is that they have allowed countries to adapt the global indicators to suit the context of the economy. So the indicators actually have a twofold relevance. They assist governments to stay on course, and their accountability to hold and connect all stakeholders to the SDGs. SDGs is one thing which is connecting large number of players. It's not only the government alone, because SDGs can never be achieved by one entity. It has to be the institution, it has to be the industry, it has to be the civil society. Everyone has to be on board. So, and MOSPI plays a lead role in terms of getting the data and trying to adapt a national indicator framework, which has just been, the second version has been released in this year itself. And we are continuously evolving the indicator sets by ensuring that they remain with the criteria that we adopt is fitment for the purpose. The indicator must fit the purpose on which, for which it is meant to be measuring. And it must follow a statistically robust methodology. So one of the challenges that you face is that if you look at this COVID-19, it has thrown up a panorama and a Pandora's box of data available from multiple sources, people doing research on it. And a lot of this information is not only globally driven, but it's also driven by vested interests, depending on what suits them. But the challenges in any indicator framework is the availability of data at the disaggregated level, whether spatially, geographically, temporally, by gender group, by social group, because remember the motto, we cannot afford to leave anyone behind. And this data cannot just flow. Just to give you an example, we talk about poverty line, population living below poverty line. First, defining the poverty line, then measuring which population, which section of the population is below it. Similarly, the access to food grains. You have proxy indicator, but actual measurement will remain a challenge, especially when your SDG goal 1 is to eradicate poverty in all its forms. The other challenge that comes up is when you are having these international agencies that drive some of the indicators. When they find that there's a lack of data, they start talking in terms of perception-based surveys. Very easy to capture, very easy to measure, but then they are perception based on your sample. And that's why the global rankings that we do, that you are seeing and witness to, India fares poorly because a lot of the perceptions are, in the mind, they're not in the field, right? This includes ease of doing business. So what do we have to do is that for the Sustainable Development Goals, since it is a holistic sort of way of looking at global development, we need to create a data revolution. And at any point of time, theoretically, when you look at global monitoring, it should be a subset of your national monitoring. Whereas today, in absence of data, the global monitoring is more than what we are having at the national level. And that's why we have to create the data system to be able to get those indicators that you can help manage it. So what is the availability of data? We just saw a presentation on datagov.in. Now, you do not have data on entire groups. Some of the data that exist are not usable. Some of them are not accessible or open. And most important is that they are not used effectively. So the data challenges have a potential for leaving too many behind, which is the core thrust of Sustainable Development Goals. But you must have seen that a large number of government departments and even private sector are moving towards online MIS. This makes the availability of data manifold in terms of a multiplier. There's an exponential growth of data available. We talk about mobile data. We talk about a huge amount of data available through the GSTN and the e-way bills. A lot of that data have been designed for a specific purpose, which is the purpose for which the ministry or the agency that is responsible for that creates the data system. Now, is it usable? Is it shareable? Is it interconnected? Is what we have to look at. How do you create the insights to make them interconnected? And that's what this entire data revolution is about. We talk about government-generated data. We talk about administrative and financial data, big sector data, big data from the private sector. Citizens also create their own data, and then you have geospatial and Earth observation. This itself is a major revolution with the availability of satellite imagery and remote sensing. You have a huge amount of data, but are they connected together or not is what we have to address ourselves on. So for that, we talk about convening, connecting, and catalyzing. You need to have country roadmap. You need to have data architecture, filling data gaps, protocols, and so on and so forth to ensure that it's not only data shared for the sake of sharing it, but it's shared for the sake of giving you better insights. And for that, what the Ministry of Statistics has been doing is that we had actually started having multi-stakeholder involvement, which includes talking to academic institutions, talking to civil societies, talking to industry, and be able to freeze those indicator sets on an as-is where it's available. But this data roadmap is an iterative and adaptive planning process, and that's why it's important. Now, if you look at the SDG Goals and Targets, as I said, it allows you to localize the requirements because ideally the data should flow from the bottom right up to the top. Now, more often than not, it's not the case. At times it's top to bottom and sometimes bottom to top, sometimes it's a hybrid approach. And that's where the Ministry of Statistics is playing a key role in terms of trying to do getting data for action to increase partnership, increasing citizen empowerment so that they can all be confident that we are in the right path for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So About this technology and principles and standards, I think the datagov.in presentation talked a lot about it, but we need to look at the capacity and financial resources available to be able to generate that much of data, and whether you need to avoid too many multiple sources of data for the same activity. Is it something which is required, or is it just something you're having it because I am responsible for a particular activity? So the National Statistical Office's data strategy ecosystem talks about an enhanced role of IT, but at the same time not compromising the role of how do you collect data right from the grassroots level. And we too are creating a national data warehouse, which is known as the National Integrated Information Platform, which allows this sharing of data, but with insights. Now, one of the challenges, as Mr. Mishra was mentioning in the datagov.in presentation, you'd find is that the datagov.in provides you information which has been voluntarily provided by the different key ministries and departments, and there is a sharing protocol. But the problem is, who is the owner of the data? And that's what I want to leave some thoughts on. Ownership of data is very important. I cannot say this is on an as-is basis. If I have collected the data, I'm responsible for it. So when you create a data ecosystem, you need all these data sharing protocols, you need the API highways, digital marketplace, but ownership will remain the core of all these activities. So some of the thoughts that that have been shared by people in the past is that what is the importance of data, not from the technology point of view, but from the data point of view. So these are some quotes. I won't read them out, but it'll lead you to a thought process on why the data is important, right? Okay, so you need to have a data-driven decision-making process where you start looking at the end objective and how you're going to collect the relevant data, build models on it, and provide more insights. I won't go through this example of e-commerce because a lot of you are very well, because of COVID, a lot of you have shifted to online procurement of your daily needs and daily goods. You'll find that they all have a predictive analysis in terms of how what is your shopping behavior, and they propose certain objects to you that these are things that you have bought in the past, and this is how you can this could suit your needs. So buying behavior analysis is very important. So basically, we're trying to move from descriptive analytics to prescriptive analytics to predict how can we make something happen. Now, I'll leave this slide with you all and you can go through them. But essentially what we're trying to look at is data visualization becomes important. And I just wanted to share this slide with you because this came out in the Times of India a few months back, where they were just trying to visualize the in-migration and out-migration of various countries. Very visually connected. Getting data to speak on its own is also a challenge which we need to look at in terms of the data production lifecycle. So open data, this you all know, that's open by default, but it's more for inclusive development and innovation, and you need to provide a platform. This is something which I'm presenting, but I don't agree to their ranking. But this is how the Open Data Watch has ranked different countries in terms of their openness for the official data. You see that India is in the mid between the 40 and 60. I don't agree to that for the simple reason that I think this is again based on certain perceptions and certain values, certain weightage. So if you look at the availability of data across sectors, you'll find that some of the areas you find that the data is available because if it's required by a United Nations obligation, yes, the data would be made available, but some of the data are not available in the way and in the manner and the freeness and the openness that is required. This is again by Open Data Watch. So again, I will leave it with a bag of salt, not a pinch of salt. You need to look at it from the perspective that it was collected. So in open data, you have to balance the benefits and challenges in terms of, do you need to monitor development progress versus data sharing and interoperability? What are the challenges in collecting data versus what are the intended benefits? And some of the activists talk about privacy of individuals. How does one balance the privacy of individual versus the need for monitoring development. Now, if you look at it, when the motto is leave no one behind, can you do it by ensuring you have adequate privacy? So it's not a question of open data, not if, but how do we? So we talk about data protection, whereas we should more be talking about, data provision. I should be able to provide all data that is collected with caveats, with riders, so that people can use them in a way that that it makes sense. But at the same time, we cannot afford to not have open data. It's too late in the day. We need to make sure all data becomes available in an open format so that people can use it. And the Ministry of Statistics last year made sure that all the data that it has collected in the past historically is now made available free of cost to all the users. I don't say it's in a very good format, but it's available in a flat file. Now, this is what I've already discussed. In terms of the data privacy spectrum, when you have micro data, and then what you have made available is open access as national and subnational aggregated administrative data. How do I make the system in a way that I can protect the privacy at the same time, not sacrifice my goal of leaving anyone behind? This is what I want to leave some thoughts with you, and how the Ministry of Statistics is evolving in terms of looking at data from various sources, whether it's census, surveys, administrative data, alternate data sources that includes telecom data, be able to measure the economy in a real-time way to make it available to all the stakeholders so that it can be used in a way that policy makes sense, right? So the emerging role of a National Statistical Office requires interaction with government agencies, in-house data production agencies, that's private, public, both, and civil societies, so that you can be able to provide information required for the national economy. Now, we have also built up an architecture in terms of how we are evolving the MOSPE's database systems, and this I'll share with you, leave with you. This is all very easy to understand. I would just like to share something of the registers and frames. If you look at any economy, very simply put, three registers are very important. One is physical register about the location of land, IDs and all that. Then you need to have an information on the individual beneficiary, that is the beneficiaries, and also the business entities. So all the statistical information hovers around these three major registers, and we are not complete in either of them in terms of form of a register, because they are all available in some aggregated form, not in a way that it could make sense, right? So our integrated information portal talks about a data warehouse adopting the best IT technologies. We have taken the best, technology partners in the country, and they are building up this information platform. And the expected outcomes that we are expecting from this is having relevant data, which is accurate, timely, punctual, and makes sense to policy making. The datagov.in is one of the instances. ISB's own India data portal, hats off to them. You have made a good beginning. And I believe that this will show the way on how data can be used in a more intelligent way to provide insights to people who need to make a decision, either for the individual or for the government or for the institution. But it needs improved user-producer discussion and dissemination. We need to make data talk. So these are standard slides. I'll not go into much of detail, but then you'd find that the benefits of open data beyond the National Statistical Office is global. It's not confined to any area. So how do you do this, which is a bit absent, and this is something that I am trying to propose, is you need to have a national chief data steward who assures, maintains, and is responsible for the ownership and accountability of data, and be able to educate the users to promote the data literacy. So all of these becomes important, and having this role of a chief data steward will ensure that all the the individual effort that are being made by different ministries and institutions converge in a direction which is important for decision making. So leave this with the last thought. When the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do, sir? This is by John Maynard Keynes. And with that, we need to see how important data is, because if it's telling us that we're on the wrong path, then we need to change our direction, not change the data, because the data is very important for us. Thank you so much.